Hi, I'm George Pearson, and these are just a few examples from some of the training videos I have here on YouTube. Now, when you're working with the training, following along the training, if you want to get the materials I used in the training, just go to the description down below and click on the link that's at the top of the description, and this will take you to a page where you can download the materials. Please subscribe, click the like button, and of course always share on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the video. In this Photoshop Elements video, we'll be making this St. Patrick's Day card. A couple of reasons for this particular project. One, I just happen to like it. And two, this is the real reason for this. What I want to show you is that you can take a different project. This is the last Valentine's Day card project I did here. You can take a different project, use the same steps and techniques to create something else. So we'll make this St. Patrick's Day card by using the same techniques that we used on that Valentine's Day card. Few obvious necessary changes, but it's basically the same project repurposed for a different theme, a different holiday. Okay, let's just get rid of this. We'll close that down. And we'll start off with a brand new file. Now, if you want to go back and look at that Valentine's Day card project, the link for that is in the description, so you can go ahead and find that right there. We'll start off here with a new blank file. Leave it at the default Photoshop Elements size, 6 width, 4 height, and 300 resolution. Choose OK. There it is. We'll be working with a docked window at this point. Now we need to put our backgrounds in. So I'll go over here to the graphics, bring our graphics up, and let's switch this over to backgrounds. There we go. Now I'll scroll down through this. I'm using Photoshop Elements 15 here, but I double checked and the graphics that we're using in this project are available in earlier versions of Photoshop Elements as well. So I'm not using anything that's brand new here in this particular project. There are a couple of these backgrounds that we need. One is this one. It's called Cocoa Steam, and it's right here next to the clover and stuff. This is kind of in the St. Patrick's Day section right there, and it's right next to that called Cocoa Steam. We'll use that second. But first I need to have a different piece. We'll be using two different backgrounds in here. So let's scroll down. I'll find the other one. It's down a bit further, and it's right almost there. A little further on. There it is. This one is called Lime Green. It's just kind of a green dot pattern. Really, anything kind of a light mid-tone green will work out fine if you want to use a different one. Now, this would be okay. This one will be okay up here. It's called Ivy. Anything like that. I mean, you can go ahead and change around if you want to for the basic idea. The concept here is that this is a lighter layer than the background layer. We'll see how that works out in just a second. So let's just double click on this, bring this in. Notice how some of these have these little blue triangles. That means that these are still up on the server, up on Adobe's side. I haven't downloaded any of those yet. If you see that, just double click, make sure that you're attached to the internet and want them to be downloaded onto your system. Okay, so here's the first one. Now I need this as a regular layer, not a background layer. So let's go over to Layers. Take this background layer, drag it up here to the new layer button. It's now a regular layer. You can now go back to the background layer, go back to our graphics, and let's scroll back up and grab that cocoa layer up there. We'll then change the color and contrast on that to get the actual background that we want to use here in this project. Alright, there it is. Again, this one is called Cocoa Steam. Double click. That will lock it in as the background. We can't see it here yet because it's underneath this. Let's look at our layers again. There it is. That's why I had to move that to a new layer, because if I left that down here, it would simply replace this with this, but I wanted that as its own. So there's our background, and here's this layer. Now we can hide this layer. We'll come back to that. Let's now adjust the settings on this and give us that nice green effect. We'll go up here to Enhance. Come down to Adjust Color. We'll do our color first, and we'll adjust the hue saturation. Now in this one, I want to shift this over so that we're looking this as a green layer instead of as a kind of brown layer. So let's change our settings in here. The top one here at hue, Set this to 65. Let's set our saturation at 53, brings the saturation up. And it'll bring our lightness down, so we'll set this at negative 36. That kind of gets us in the right range. We're not exactly there yet, but that gives our basic colors. Choose OK. We're now going to adjust the brightness and contrast using the levels control. So enhance, adjust lighting and levels right here. Now with this I can lighten up or darken down by using that slider control, and I can increase the contrast by pulling the ends in just like that. You see how I have all that control in there? Okay, so the settings I want for this on the black side, set that at 51. On the gray, put this at 0.32, and for the white side in here, we want this at 159. So that the white is just coming into the graphic right there, the histogram right there. The black is just a little ways into the black, and then the midtone is moved way over here to the right-hand side. That darkens it down. So there we go, 51, 0.32, and 159, and choose OK. So there's our nice background taken from that kind of coffee tone color and converted it over here to a nice green background. Okay, let's bring our other background up again. We now need to make an ellipse in here, so we're using this just for the center section. To do that, I want to put in some guidelines, nice centered guidelines. So go up here to the View menu, come down to New Guide. Now my rulers are in inches. As you recall, this is 4 inches tall by 6 inches wide. So for the vertical guideline, that's this way. I want it 3 inches in, so I'll type in 3, choose OK. If you're using a different measurement, you just want to go to the whatever the halfway point is on those two. View, New Guide, set this to horizontal, and this one will be at 2, which is 1/2 of 4. So there's my exact center. Now I'm going to change my colors here to black and white so it's easy to see what we're doing, and then going over here to the ellipse tool. Now we're using this to make a selection, and then using the selection to make a layer mask. The reason why I'm using the ellipse tool instead of just using the elliptical marquee up here is that I want to be able to draw from the center, and I can't easily do that with that tool, but I can do it with this tool. Okay, so set this at unconstrained, from center, and then take your cursor. You can see the cursor is right there. Take it and put it right over the center. It doesn't have to be perfectly exact, but about that. And then pull out until you're about halfway up and down and about halfway out to the side. So about like that. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Anywhere around in there is fine. And that'll give you a nice black ellipse in the middle. Okay, go back to our Move tool here. Right click on the name and simplify that layer. Now use the magic wand and click in that. That gives you that selection. There's my ellipse selection. That's all I need for that layer actually. That layer is now done. Come back down to this second of our background layers and then click on the layer mask right there, and notice how we're now just seeing that layer through that layer mask. I want a nice soft edge on this, so we'll use the Gaussian blur to soften out the layer mask. Make sure that the light blue outline is around that. If it's not, if it's over here, just double click over here to bring it over like that. It should already be there. Okay, go up to Filter, come down to Blur, Gaussian blur, and set this at 50, and that softens down the edge of that layer mask, giving us a nice soft edge right there, and choose OK. Alright, that finishes off the background. We can now begin working on our foreground stuff. I don't need to be seeing these lines at this point, so let's just go up here to View and uncheck where it says Guides. It just hides those guides. I can bring them back now if I need to. Go up to this layer. If you want to, you can delete this layer at this point. I'm just going to leave it on here. And we're going to bring in a new shape on this. Interestingly enough, we'll be using the same heart shape that we used back on the Valentine's video. But we'll use that to build our Shamrock shape. Now, a little bit of interest possibly. There are two kinds of clover shapes that you'll see on things. There's the 3-leaf clover, which is called a shamrock, and the 4-leaf clover, which you'll see, which is a good luck thing. Now, properly for St. Patrick's Day, you want the 3-leaf clover and not the 4-leaf clover. That's one that is frequently mistaken by a lot of people. So we're doing a 3-leaf clover, which is the official shamrock for St. Patrick's Day. Okay, come down to graphics, click over to this, and change the setting here to shapes. And I'll scroll down and we'll find the heart. And again, it's the same heart that I used on the Valentine's Day. We'll be using that for one of the 3 leaves on the 3-leaf clover. It's right there. So click on that, or double click depending upon which version you have of Elements, and that brings in a heart shape right here. Now let's go back to our layers, make 2 copies of this layer, drag it up once and drag it up a second time. On the top one, we're going to rotate this around by 120 degrees. Make sure you're on the Move tool, click on any of these little control handles, and then change the degrees down here on the rotation to 120. Just spins it around, just kind of drag it off to the side like that. There you go. Come down 1 step here, click on any of those control handles, doesn't matter which one. That brings up the transform tool options down below. Let's change this to negative 120. And that flips it the other way around, just like that. So now I have our 3 leaves in here. And I want to overlap these leaves in the center. And I'll bring it in, kind of like that. It's kind of a nice big overlap in here. Let's grab this one. Nice big overlap. Now if you look at these, you'll see that this point here is aiming at that gap. I'll use my cursor keys, the arrow keys on the keyboard, to kind of move that around so that it's not touching but pretty close to that gap and pointing at it. Let's check our other ones. There's this leaf. There's the gap. You want the corner here to point at that gap, and I want to get it in closer to that gap like we had on the other one. It may have to do a little bit of back and forth on these things to get them all positioned just about right. Again, not real critical, but the better off, the closer you are, the better off it's going to look. So this, again, a little bit of space down here, and the corner is pointing right at that gap. Looks like we're all just about there. Maybe just a little off on that one. Okay, so they're all kind of pointing directly across at that gap, and they're overlapping a good amount. We now need the stem on this thing. Before I do that, let's just simplify these layers. Right click, simplify, come down, right click, simplify, come down again, right click, and simplify. We'll be needing that in just a little bit. Okay, back to the graphics, and we'll scroll down a bit further, and there is another graphic down here you want to use. This, by the way, is similar to the Shamrock, same basic idea that we used in the last St. Patrick's Day card I just recently did here, except I didn't overlap it as far. It didn't need the overlap on that one. Okay, here's this thing. It's called River 2. Click or double click to bring that in. There's our River 2 shapes right here. Back to the layers. Right click on that shape and simplify. So it's just a graphic. Now grab the magic wand, click on the bottom one of those, and actually before I even do that, let me just deselect. Down here in the tools, in the magic wand tool options, make sure that contiguous is checked right there. Okay, now click on the bottom one, just that one is selected, hit the delete key, it goes away. Click on the next one, hit the delete key, it goes away, and then let's deselect that. That leaves us with just this one. And this will be our stem for the Shamrock. Just put it down here. I'm going to drag this way up like that. And just kind of position that so it's about centered. There we go. So I just made it about twice as tall as it was. And choose OK. And there's a nice little stem on our Shamrock. Okay, now take these 4 layers. Hold the control key down, click on each one. They're all selected. Right click and merge layers. There's the Shamrock. We can double click on this if you want to and give it the name of Shamrock. Okay, now I want to make a selection in here and cut out the middle of this thing. So I'll do that with the magic wand. Click in the black area. That selects the whole Shamrock. Let's now shrink this selection. So go up to Select, come down to Modify and Contract. and we're going to be contracting this by 50 pixels. Choose OK. It just shrinks that selection down like that. Now hit the delete key and it cuts out that middle part. Okay, select and deselect. So far so good. Now I want to rotate this around just a little bit, so click on any of the control handles, doesn't matter which one. That brings up the transform tool options. Set the degrees down here to 15. Gives it a slight little twist. Choose OK. There's the twist. Now grab a corner and let's make this thing larger. So it kind of nicely fits in the area like that. Not clear to the top, not clear to the bottom, but pretty good size. So we have that kind of glowing effect in behind, and then we have the big shamrock. You could, of course, adjust the size later on if you want to get it in whatever look you're looking for. Let's now take a look and do our graphics on this thing. So we have our basic shamrock in place. Let's now do some graphics work. I'm going to bring up the Styles panel over here, and I'm in the Wow Chrome section right there, and click on the lightest of the Wow Chromes, which is called Chrome Shiny Edge. And that gives us kind of a nice, silvery aluminum kind of a look to this thing. Now I need to have this in a gold tone instead of in this tone. So back to our layers. We'll put a new layer above this. We'll fill this layer with a solid color. Come down to our color picker. Click on the black color picker right here, and we'll set the color in here to FFC 600. So it's kind of a nice bright orangey color. Choose OK. Grab your paint bucket, click on the page. It fills that layer with that new chosen color. Okay, I now want this to blend with this layer. That's a blend mode option. So click on your blending mode up here. And we're going to come down to color on our blending mode, and it blends that in just like that. Now I want this to only be affecting just the shamrock. A couple ways of doing that. One is to right click and create clipping mask. Does that, it just kind of drops it over. That's one way. Other way here is to use this layer to make a mask and apply that mask up here. I'll show you how that one's done. So come down to the shamrock layer, grab the magic wand, uncheck where it says contiguous, and then click anywhere on the outside. That selects the transparency of this layer. Let's now invert that. Select, invert, so just the shamrock shape is selected. Go up here to our layer 1 and click on the add layer mask. That gives you a layer mask on that layer. Okay, so there's our gold shamrock. So far, so good. Now we're going to add a little drop shadow onto this thing. Come down to the shamrock layer. Notice that we have some effects on here already. The Wow Chrome gave us some automatic effects. So double click on the little FX thing right there, brings up the style settings. Or you can go to layer and style right there to bring those up as well, layer style. We're now going to just adjust the drop shadow here. Let's change the lighting angle to 108. It's kind of upper left hand corner, kind of like up here somewhere. And let's change the distance right here. I'm going to change the distance to 73. Gives us a nice offset like that. Change the opacity. Opacity should be at 75. And the size, the larger the size, the softer the edge is. Let's change the size here up to 35. Gives us kind of a nice soft edge on that drop shadow. There we go. Now again, those basic steps we just did here, those are the exact same steps we did over with the Valentine's Day card with the heart. So we're really doing the exact same thing. At this point, we're going to be doing a change. On the Valentine's card, I had some ribbons that kind of wound through the heart. On this one, we'll do a rainbow in behind. Now, I showed one way to do a rainbow on an earlier project. I'm going to show you a different way to do a rainbow on this one. It's kind of a fun little change in here on making a rainbow. I'll go here to the top layer. I'll put a new layer in right here. I'm going to hide everything else just temporarily here, so I have just this clean layer. Put my colors here back to black and white, so reset those. And I'll put in a couple of guidelines and bring back up our center guide. There's the centering guide right there. I'll now bring one guide down. Notice up here on the upper right hand corner, you can see where it says the Y number in there. You can bring this down to about 0.13, like that for a guide here, and pull it down again, watching those numbers in here come down to 0.75 right there. Or I could have gone up here to View, New Guide, put one in at 0.13 and one at 0.75 on the horizontal. There we go. We'll use those to create our circles. You're doing two circles. Go back to our ellipse tool. From center should still be selected. Let's change this to circle. And go right over that middle part. It's kind of hard to see here. I'm going to make it a little bit easier to see on this. Let's just put another layer in here. I'm going to fill this layer with white. There we go. Get rid of that checkerboard effect in there. A little easier to see now. So we're using this layer here, the transparent layer. We have the ellipse tool. Make sure you have black as your foreground color. Circle from center. And then just click and drag up to that top line right there. So a big circle. That's one layer. Do the same thing again. Come down here right to the middle and put that second line. Gives you a second shape, second circle, smaller than the first circle. Okay, that's all we need to have those guidelines for. Now done with our guidelines. So we can go ahead and hide the guidelines. Let's just undo guide. There we are. Now this circle is here just to make a selection to cut a hole out of this circle, giving us a donut shape. So we'll have to simplify these shapes. Right click, simplify layer, right click, and simplify layer. Make sure you're on the top circle, grab the magic wand, click in the middle. That selects that shape, or hold the control key down and click on the icon. That also selects that shape. Two different ways of doing that. That's all I need from that one. You can go ahead and hide that one. Go down to this circle and hit the delete key. So you just cut a center out of that. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a moment. We'll deselect for right now. There we are. That's all set to go. This will be our rainbow layer, our first part of our rainbow layer. Let's now grab the gradient tool, and I'm going to set this at either of these two spectrums is fine. I'll just do this one right here. So it gives us that as our rainbow effect right there. Real basic spectrum. We'll be using this to put a rainbow effect in here. I won't be going as fancy as I was on the photographic rainbow I did previously. This is more of a cartoony kind of a rainbow. But I need to change the positions of all of these spots in here. And actually, I think I want to reverse the positions on these things as well. So you can reverse these. Just grab your color stop and you can pull it anywhere you want to, just like that. You actually pull these things around. There we go. So we have red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, magenta, and then red again at the far right hand corner. Let's now set these in specific positions. For the first red right here, click on that stop. Look for a little black arrow above it, little black kind of a cap on it. When you see that, go over here and change this to 32. That moves that to that location. Now go to the yellow one, click on that. Change the location to 43. Oh, close it down by accident. There we go. So there's our 43. Next, go to the green and change the green to 45. So they're pretty close together. Come over to the cyan. Change this to 47. Go up to the blue right there. Let's change the blue to 55. And the magenta you can just pull right down on top of the red, just like that. So we're really using just a real small area in here. And choose OK. And the reason why I have those set at that setting is so we can then do something very, very specific in here inside of our circle for our rainbow to give the same effect. So you can match the effect that I did. Now grab the magic wand. We're on our donut layer still. Click into the black. That selects just that area. Let's bring our guides back up again. Show our guides. There we go. Back to the gradient tool. Click on the center point and then drag to the upper right hand corner. There you go. That's why we did that adjustment to adjust those positions on these, because at that measurement from center to corner, those fall right in a line where I want to have them sitting in here. It took me a while to find the exact positions on those, trial and error, but that's what we're doing here. If we didn't have the selections in here, we'd have red in here going up to the yellow, green, cyan, blue, out to purple, and out to the magenta red up there. We'd have that whole spectrum, but we're looking at just this piece of it right in here. So there we go. We can now deselect that. So select, deselect, or Control D. I'll make a copy of this one and hide that just in case, just a safety. I do that frequently on my projects, as you've probably seen. Let's go to the rectangular marquee tool and then drag a marquee clear into that center line and hit the delete key. Cuts that off. Go to the bottom right hand corner and drag up to the center line like that. Hit the delete key and cut that corner off as well. So it leaves us with just this piece. Okay, there's our basic rainbow. We can now hide the white layer. Let's bring everything else back up again. Take this rainbow and pull it underneath the shamrock. There's in behind the shamrock. And pull it down below. Grab the upper left hand corner and let's just drag this up a little bit and then drag it over a little bit. Until it's something kind of like that. We're just giving it just a nice little background coloration in there. Now I'm going a lot more subtle on this one. You can go bright if you want a brighter card, or what I'll be doing is a more subtle card on this rainbow, which is this shape right there. That's our rainbow. The first thing I want to do though is to soften down the edges just a little bit. We'll do that with the magic wand. Make sure the contiguous is not checked and click outside the rainbow. And that selects the transparency outside. Let's now go to select inverse. So we now have just the rainbow selected. Go up here to the layer mask button. Gives us a layer mask of just that rainbow. I can now do a blur on the layer mask and kind of just soften those edges just a little bit. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. To keep things simple, I'll leave this at the 50% on this. It's the same blur we used before. Let's now bring the opacity down a little bit on this layer. Change the opacity right here down to 70. That just kind of softly puts that into the background right there. Okay, so there's our background element. Let's now hide those guides again. So view, hide the guides, they're out of our way. Now we need our corner pieces in here and then the lettering. So for the corners, go back to our graphics. This time we'll change this up to graphics. Let those load in. Here we go. Now I use this thing down here on the Valentine's Day cards, ribbons, kind of wove that in between, and then I use some little leafy things in the corners. We're doing the same kind of leafy corner concept here, but with a different leaf effect. I'm just scrolling up right now to find our other graphic for this thing. And there we go. We'll be using this one right here. It's called Gold Bush. And there it is right there. I'm going to grab this and just make it about twice as big, kind of like that. And I'm going to spin this around. Click on the corner right there or any of the sides, any of these control handles. Come down to the transform here and set this at 32. Just spins that around. So it's larger and it's spun around to 32. Okay, now take this just right down into the corner like that. Okay, back to our layers. Take this layer, drag it up here, makes a copy, and I'll put that upper left-hand corner. Take this, drag it up here, copies that, and just drag it over to this corner. There we go. Take that, drag up to a new layer button, makes a copy, and drag it down to the bottom right hand corner. So there's just some stuff on the corners, some bushy kind of stuff on the corners. I now want to link all of these together. So hold the Control key down and click on those 4 layers. Right click, we're going to merge the layers together. There they are, merged together. Make a copy of this, drag it up to the new layer button. There's a copy of that one. Let's now make this one a little bit smaller. Click on, look at the top one right now, click on that little control handle right there. And where it says W, which is width, set this to 85%. It'll change both of those. So it makes them a bit smaller, kind of moves them in and gives us more stuff in here. Now I also want to rotate this around a little bit. So change our degrees here to 9. It just rotates it around a little bit. This gives us more stuff down around there, and choose OK. Let's go back to the bottom one. You can adjust the bottom if you want to kind of help fill out those positions. So you have that ability right at this point to come in and position things just a bit either side. Back to our top one. Okay, there we go, back to the top. Now I want this a little bit of variation, a bit more variation on this, and that's easy to do if we come in and we just lighten this up a little bit. So go up to the Enhance menu, come down to Adjust Lighting and Levels, and just take the gray, and we're going to change the gray here to 1.61. So it's 1.61, just like that. You can see it lightened that top layer up a little bit. This gives us a little bit more variation on those. Okay, the corners are now taken care of. All we have left to do is the lettering on top of this whole thing. We'll use the same lettering I used over on the Valentine's Day card, but with different coloration, of course. So go to the Type button right here. Now the one I used is called Minion Pro Bold Condensed Italic. Any typeface will work out fine. This is just what I happen to have used over there. So we'll use this and just click in here any old place just like that. I'll type in happy and choose OK. So there's the first word, happiest. Come down. Notice that was set at 42 point. Back to your type tool, click in here again, and I'll type in St. Patrick's. Right there, choose OK, and then do one more of these for day. It looks like I'm just off screen down there. There it is. Okay, now we have our basic text on here. We can make some modifications. Triple click on the St. Patrick's and change the size up to 60 point. Just kind of enlarges that. Let's just get this basically up here. Let's go up to day and put that right over here someplace, and then bring the happy down a little bit. So you can see the happy and day are smaller than the St. Patrick's. Let's now adjust the coloration in here. I want to have this kind of a nice bright color. Double click on happy where it says color down here. Change this to that yellow. This is the CMYK yellow, and choose OK. Do the same thing for St. Patrick's. Again, type tool, triple click and grab that yellow, and then down to day and change that as well. Now of course I could have done this at the very start and not have it left in black, but I just wanted to separate out those two steps in here on the video so you can see them distinctly. Okay, so we have our Happy St. Patrick's Day. I think I'm going to do a little change on my layers. I'm going to drag day underneath St. Patrick's and drag happy above St. Patrick's. That looks better. Okay, now I want to add some styling onto this. We'll do the St. Patrick's layer. We'll do a drop shadow and an outside line on this. So layer, layer style, style settings, drop shadow right there. Now for the drop shadow, set the size at 13, set the distance at 18, and then set the opacity here at 78. So it gives us kind of a fairly dark, little bit of a soft edge. The darkness is by the opacity, the soft edge is by the size, and the distance, of course, is how far away it is. Choose OK. So that does that that's our drop shadow. Notice how I get that little FX over here right hand corner? That means I can now double click on that and it brings back up those styles. Okay, let's now put a stroke onto this one. Now choose outside. Even if it says outside, go ahead and choose outside again just to make sure. Change the size to 7. So there we go. And we'll change the color to a dark green. Click on the color right here. And right down there where the numbers are, set this to 006820. So 006820, kind of a medium dark green. Right hand side, so it's full saturation, and it's down towards the darker end of that. Choose OK. So there's our basic coloration for the lettering. Choose OK. Let's now copy this and apply it on the other two layers. So right click on this layer and copy layer style. Go up to happy, right click, paste layer style. Come down to day, right click, and paste layer style. Now all that's left to do is just to kind of adjust your position so things look nice in here, so kind of nicely spaced out. That looks pretty good. Notice how I have the happy is pretty much on the left hand side, and I have the day lined up on the right hand side here, pretty close. And there we go. There's our happy St. Patrick's Day card. And again, this was done using the same approach that we used on the Valentine's Day card. A few obvious changes that we had to make. Our main graphic back here, of course, I changed that from the ribbons to this custom rainbow effect, and we did different graphics in these locations, but the same basic concept. So again, just showing you how you can take these steps, the same basic steps, from one video project and apply them to a different project just by changing the graphics that are being used, but leave the steps basically the same, adjusting only as needed. So there we go. There's our St. Patrick's Day card. Let's just bring this up a little bit here so you can see it better. There we go. Nice and clean at that size. So there it is. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com. You can share this video with your friends and coworkers. Just click on share and then click on the social media buttons. Feel free to comment on my videos. I try to answer all comments as quickly as I can.